Hello, Ashton. How's it going? Thanks for the videos. Good stuff in there. We'll dive into that in a minute, but first off, I wanted to give you guys some news. I have decided that I'm not going back to the music center in North Conway to continue drum lessons over there. Uh, Basically, it's nothing regarding them. Our relationship was good. That was a good situation for me, and for them, hopefully. But since the virus came in, and things have kind of changed. My girlfriend for the last 12 years, she's been down in New York. For the last 4 years, and we've sort of been apart. And she moved back here. Essentially, decided not to go back to New York since the virus came in, and we sort of have some plans, some different directions. We're probably going to be moving to a city like within the next year, possibly 6 months, and I'm sort of feeling like I need to get back to playing more music with people and like good musicians and stuff like that. And I just don't really have that around here. So that's part of my draw to do this. But we've just sort of, had a chance to kind of look at our lives and kind of go, oh, well, there's so much more. Why don't we just go do it? So unfortunately, that's it's a little sad news for us. I've super enjoyed our lessons together, and I'm happy to continue the video lessons as long as that makes sense for everybody. I'll be here, like I said, for maybe up to a year, and I'm more than happy to keep doing those video lessons. I will say in-person lessons, at least for me, I've noticed they're just kind of better. I do see benefits to the video format, and it is working, but I guess my point is, if you guys have another teacher in mind, like, no hard feelings, like, you should go and do that. And the Music Center North Conway is, of course, gonna be replacing me with somebody. It didn't sound like they had anyone in mind right off the bat, but that could be an option for you guys, hopefully in the nearish future. I don't know how long it'll take them to figure that out, but anyways. So, I feel a little bad because I kind of just started teaching at the music center and was kind of all in on that, and it was cool, but like I said, things have sort of flipped around, and I've decided to split from there. So, alrighty, let me know if you have any questions or comments on that situation, and cool, alrighty. That being said, let's jump into this week's lesson. So, let's look at the backbeat grooves first. So, nice work on that. Actually, let me back up. Let's talk about the cross stick first. So, thanks for watching that video and taking the time to shoot a little video playing the cross stick with those grooves. You basically got it. I have a couple little pointers, just things to be aware of, but you're like 90% there. So, everything looked basically good. Just a couple little things. I call this part of my hand the heel of my hand. So like the very bottom of your palm, the heel of my hand. So, like you saw in the video, I kind of pretty much always rest the heel of my hand on the drum and kind of use that as a pivot point or a hinge, if you will. And almost never do I pick my hand up completely from the drum because I find it to be unstable and it changes my position every time it comes back down, and it feels weird to me. So I always keep the heel of my hand on the drum, And you were basically doing that, but I did see a couple times where the hand was coming off the drum completely. Mostly like the heel of the hand, right? That was kind of coming off just a little bit, not much. And not all the time, but I did see it happen a few times. You know, it takes a while to get comfortable with this if you haven't really done it much. And I could kind of tell by the way you were playing that it's not totally comfortable yet, and that's totally fine. It's going to take a few weeks, a few months perhaps, before that feels very comfortable. But it's good. It's good we're diving into this now, because this technique and this sound, it's so common, it's ridiculous how common this is. So it's good that we're doing this now, because you need this in your playing. So, yeah, if, you know, shoot to have the heel of the hand on the drum the whole time. If for some reason that just, you're not digging the heel of the hand on the drum, like, you can experiment with other things. But I think most drummers that have good technique with this, that's usually the thing that they do, is keep the heel of the hand on the drum. So another little thing I saw, and this is something I still deal with all the time, is basically the sound that you're producing. And you probably saw from the video, the biggest factor in determining the sound that you get from this is where the butt end of the stick, right? This part, the very butt end, where that is in relationship to the edge of the drum, or the rim, or the center of the drum for that matter. So is the butt end of the stick like all the way out, like touching the rim or very close to it? Or is the butt end of the stick more towards the center of the drum, like that? So that really has the biggest effect on the sound you're going to get. And all of those sounds are an option. Right? You can hear it change. All of those sounds are an option. But I would shoot for like kind of a default setting. And this is kind of what I do most of the time, where you just sort of find that sweet spot. And it's usually maybe about 2 inches, give or take, from the rim of the drum. So sort of what you see right here. So on this drum, which doesn't respond to cross sticks very well because it has no bottom head, that's basically my sweet spot right there. If I move in, it loses a bit of that crack. If I move out, it gets too thin sounding and loses body. So right in here, I get a nice amount of crack and a nice amount of body. So you pretty much had that position. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I just noticed that that would change as you were playing. And this is common. Mine still changes a little bit here and there. But it, you know, like everything we've been talking about, it's like consistency, right? So generally, if we're playing a groove, we want the cross stick to basically sound the same every time, and that'll make things groovier. So that's all I'd say, is just be aware of that point and try to maintain it while you're playing the groove. And keeping the heel of your hand down in the same place will help that as well, because if you're doing that, it's harder to move the stick around. If you're lifting up your hand, there's a chance that that stick is going to fall differently every time. So those two things, that's it. And of course you can experiment with turning the stick around. This generally gets a louder cross stick sound, a slightly different sound. A lot of drummers will only play their cross stick turned around like this. I was like that for a few years, and then now I kind of stick mostly to this, just so I don't have to deal with turning my stick around. And sometimes I turn my stick around, so I do both. Cool. groovy. That's enough on the cross stick. I hope that makes sense. I'm glad we're working on that. So now let's dive into the backbeats. We're playing the upbeats in the left foot, and we're still kind of crash riding and floor tomming with our right hand. And that was all good. I'd say you were about a 7 out of 10 on that. Maybe a little harder than the last left foot variation where we were playing eighth notes, maybe? I don't know. But I think it's good enough to, let's move on to the next left foot. You know, I kind of trust you. I think you have a really good awareness of where things are at in your playing. And I think you know that was probably a 7 out of 10, or maybe you grade it slightly different. But you know that it's not, like, exactly where you'd want it to be in terms of comfort level, in terms of feel. And as long as you know that, that's, like, the most important thing. So, you know, I kind of just trust that, you know, if you end up playing those type of beats with that type of left foot pattern, you're just going to understand that you need to work on it a little bit more to get it up to that level. And that's fine. These things take time. So the next left foot would be the 2 and the 4. So from this page, left foot options. So we're looking at the last one down here where we have hi-hat closing on 2 and 4. Okay, so we'll just put those together with all of our backbeats from this page that we've been working on. So same stuff, just adding that next left foot option. And let's stick with the cross stick so we get more comfortable with that. I'll put myself at 90, and again, you know, you go slower if you want to, it's fine. And we'll do the crash ride thing still and the floor tom thing still. So I'll probably just go through this kind of like I've done the last couple weeks. I'll play 4 bars of each one, and I'll switch to a different sound source with my right hand for each groove, and hopefully not mess up. So here's 90. Again, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going on our left foot. I'm doing kind of a heel-toe thing. You do what's comfortable for you. And we're cross stick, finding that sweet spot, keeping the heel of our hand on the drum if that feels right to you. And crash ride and floor tom. So I'll start with the first one and just continue 4 bars of each. 1, 2, 3, 4. More or less, right? I had a couple little things in there that weren't quite right, but you get the idea. So, groovy. We'll do that for this week, and moving on to improvisations. I dig it. I like your improvisations. I think you totally got into some different territory for yourself, and you ended up playing things that you wouldn't normally play. Am I right? I think I'm right. Let me know if I'm not right. But I haven't seen you play anything like that. And, you know, some of this stuff may seem a little weird, but weird is good, you know? And if we want to play normal stuff, you know, knowing what's possible as far as weird goes only helps us play more normal, if that makes any sense. So if we understand weird, then we automatically understand normal better, and then we understand all those places in between. Okay, so yeah, the improvs were great, especially the out of time one. I think that's totally new territory for you. I like the fact that you were thinking about combining triple strokes with unison strokes. That was a cool idea. And I think that's kind of all I had for comments on those. So let's do another one for this week. I added another rule to our list of possible rules. So you can add this. This one down at the bottom is called note length. Note length. So, drums, most of the time, the length of our notes is short, right? It's the nature of the instrument. If I hit a drum, whap, it just makes a short sound. It's a very short note. Compared to like a piano, you press down a key and it goes ba, and it rings out, right? A lot of other instruments ring out when you play them, but drums, no. If we want a longer note, we have to do things to get a longer note. And basically, there's not a whole lot of options. It usually comes down to rolling on some level to get a note that kind of sounds long. So our press roll, for example, is a way of getting a long note, right? Instead of doing this, we could do this. And we get a long note, right? And of course that could happen on any voice of the instrument. Cymbals are naturally ringy. Probably not quite as ringy and sustainy as maybe a piano would be. But if I hit a cymbal, it does ring. It has more attack at the beginning. Usually goes crash, and then it has this sort of underlying ring afterwards. But we would consider those to be long notes on a drum set. So hi-hats, if I hit a closed hi-hat, short note. But if I do like a half-open thing, I get a long note. Or even kind of fully open, I get a long note. Okay? So, for this week, let's do 2 improvisations again, and let's do 1 improvisation using long notes. So that's either gonna mean press rolling on things or playing cymbals to get long notes. And let's do another improvisation using short notes. And let's put both improvisations in time. And I actually want to use a motor in our feet, and it will be the same motor that we're using in the rudiments exercise. So kick, hat, right, left, right, left. I don't think we need to do this with a metronome, but maybe somewhere in that kind of comfortable, slow, medium-ish tempo would make sense. If we go too fast or too slow, then it might be a little more challenging, and then maybe we're going to forget what we're trying to do with our hands, which is sort of the main point of this week's improvisations. So, we're going to keep that motor in our feet, and then we're just going to play improv with long notes, and then do another improv with short notes, both with the motor in our feet, somewhere around this tempo. So here's a couple versions of that. Here's a long notes version. one possible example. Now I'll do one using short notes, which of course, it's a little more straightforward, right? Because we just sort of play the drums as we normally would, not thinking about long notes, and we can automatically do something with short notes. So here's a version of that. Alright, so that's it for improvs this week, and then we're rounding out our lesson today with rudiments. So yes, that was all great. Nice work. Your press roll is sounding really good these days. All of those rolls were correct, including the 11-stroke roll. And I noticed that there's a typo on this page, so sorry about that. On the 11-stroke roll, 11-stroke roll here, there should be a quarter rest there, and there's not. Just like we had up here in the 10-stroke roll. So maybe that was confusing you. Sorry about that. There should be a quarter rest there, just like up there. One of those squiggly guys on beat 4. But they're not there. I don't know why. But you played it right, nonetheless. So that was good. Moving on to the 13-stroke roll, the next one. So you can see if you got your page in front of you. I'm not going to get into the notation too much right now. It's not all that important. And as soon as I play this, you're just going to hear it and know exactly what it is anyways. So, 13-stroke roll, we're basically playing those double strokes all the way to beat 4. So at 70, decca, 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 4, decca, 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 4, decca, 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 da, decca, 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 da. Okay, now let me play it totally correctly. So we're alternating one measure starting with the right, ending with the right, and then one measure starting with the left, ending with the left on beat 4. And we alternate measures like that. There's a repeat at the end, so we end up doing those 4 bars twice. So it's a full 8 bars of 13-stroke roll. 1, 2, 3, 4. Groovy. Simple enough, right? Alright. I think that'll do it for today. And hope everything's good. And I'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.